creativity. Any comments about my bangs being too long right now? Immediate block. I hear people say all the time that they just aren't creative, and it drives me crazy. I'm not a very argumentative person, but when I hear that, I want to argue. I want to object, and I want to launch into a whole speech about how that is not true. But that is not usually very socially appropriate, so I am turning that whole rant into a YouTube video instead, and I'm going to yell at all of you on here. Creativity is not an innate thing that some people have and some people don't. It is a practice that you can cultivate. We can all be creative. Some people may have more of a natural knack for it. You might not end up being like the LeBron of creativity, but you can still be creative, and you can be more creative than you are currently. And that is what this video is about today, if that was already not abundantly clear from the title, how to be more creative. I'm going to talk about what creativity is and what it isn't and how to cultivate more of it. And next time someone says to me, I'm just not that creative, I'm going to go, don't make me tap the video. What is creativity? Webster's dictionary defines creativity as, I don't know, I wrote my own definition. To me, creativity is a way of thinking and looking at the world that centers noticing and the resilience of thought. This is going to get a little pretentious. I'm sorry. There's no other way. What do those things mean? Noticing is about not being a passive consumer of the world. It is about having a point of view about what you see and hear and feel. And it is about making connections between those things, finding patterns, giving things meaning, curating. Noticing is where ideas come from. Ideas are just noticing the same thing a bunch of times, or noticing a connection between all the things you've noticed. If you want to be more creative, you can't just let stuff happen to you. You have to notice it and think something about it. The resilience of thought is about letting yourself think in new ways. It is getting stuck on something, and instead of giving up, going, is there another way to look at this? Is there another way to think about this? What else can I try? It is going, and what if, and not shutting down your curiosity because it is new. This is the process part of the creative process. There is always another way to look at something. You just have to learn to let yourself do it. Perhaps you've noticed that these are two things that take place in the brain and are not like a craft. To me, creativity is more of a worldview than it is anything else. You can look at any task, any problem, any situation in a creative way, which also means that to me, creativity is not being good at art or music or writing. This is usually the context in which people tell me that they are not creative. They are not good at one of the common ways in which people express their creativity. But I do not think that these things are in and of themselves creative. Art and music and writing, like creativity, are skills that you can cultivate. And being creative, approaching those skills creatively, will give you a unique viewpoint on how to use them. And there are also a lot of ways to use your creativity that have nothing to do with the arts. But I do have to say, like creativity, being good at the arts is not a special trait that some people have and some people don't. Some people will have more of a natural knack for it, but everyone can be better at any of those things than they currently are if they practice. I do not have a natural gift for making music. My sense of rhythm, really bad. I have tried to learn to read music many times to no avail. I am clunky on the guitar and I'm not good at singing, but I have written and recorded dozens of songs that have gone from unlistenably bad to halfway decent. Being creative, coming at that process creatively, has helped me figure out how to make something sound the way I want it to sound within the constraints of my skills, while also improving those skills by practicing them. If you go to college in Philadelphia and you're not in a band, they just make you leave. I really had no other choice. So you don't have to be good at the arts to be creative. You don't have to ever want to be good at the arts to be creative. But being creative will help you improve at the arts if you want to. Being creative is also not a certain type of person. It is not a specific job. It is not a specific look. It is not quote unquote the creatives at the office. I actually really hate creative as a noun, like I am a creative. I think that just reinforces the idea that some people have that and some people don't, and I don't think that's true. And creativity is also not being completely original. More on that soon. Cultivating creativity. How do you do that? Allow me to make some suggestions. Number one, start keeping an enormous list of everything. Anything that makes your brain go, ooh, things you read, things you see on a walk, a funny post, a good vocab word, a really good video, a question that keeps popping in your head, a color palette, a sign with a neat design on it, a turn of phrase that someone says that you like. Literally anything. This is a mood board for your brain. And it is an exercise in learning how to notice. It's about developing your taste and your point of view. I started doing this in college because I went to art school and I needed to have a lot of ideas. So I kept a running inspiration list in a desktop sticky. If I thought something was cool, I would throw it in there. And then with every new assignment, I would consult the list. In my 20s, it became a somewhat insane mega Google Doc. Now I have a whole little system, a sort of series of inspiration documents in an app called Craft. What I'm getting at here is that this recommendation is over a decade in the making. And while it is extremely helpful for coming up with ideas, I think it is mostly about practicing noticing what interests you, noticing connections between those things. Taste is a weird thing because some of it is just like what you're exposed to, but a lot of it is just a vibe. And I think it's really worth getting in touch with that vibe and getting excited about your instincts as a noticer. Everyone's always talking about making like data-driven decisions, and I think there's a time and a place for that. But I also think there's something to be said for really getting to know like your taste and your instincts and learning how to trust that part of yourself too. Pick something that you always do one way and do it another way. I think one of the biggest blockers to creativity is being rigid. And on the other hand, some of the biggest promoters of creativity are humor and play. We do things in such specific ways for like no reason a lot of the time, other than just like that's just how you do it, which makes a lot of what we do in the day-to-day this really great like low stakes playpen for practicing the essential creative skill of going, what if there's another way to do this? Walk a different route, work from a different location, swap the normal order of your chores, make an outfit with a piece of clothing you haven't worn in a while, have breakfast for lunch, rearrange your trinkets. Whatever you're kind of rigid about, that's probably a decent place to start. It sounds kind of silly, but I think it's like training your brain to being open to doing things in another way, getting okay with doing things just because, getting okay with doing things one time, it doesn't have to be permanent, getting comfortable with being a bit more loosey-goosey, but also it's just fun. It's very, haha, she's so crazy. Much of what makes me feel creative is like embracing the absurdity of it all, using my free will to the extent that I believe in free will. One thing I try and do in my life in general is if I have one of those like, wouldn't that be funny type thoughts, is I like follow that thought through all the way. And I do whatever that thing is, committing to the bit for personal development reasons. The other day I thought, I wonder if I could kick a field goal. So I went to the store and I got a football tee and I found out. I made a bunch of these little rugs in a tin because I thought it would be funny. They're completely useless. It's just a rug in a tin. Who cares? Have fun. Find all the little low stakes moments in your day in which you can be creative. It will help you be creative in the actual big hard moments when you need to be creative. And it might also help you stop being such a perfectionist, which brings us to our next point. Perfectionism is an enemy of creativity. Being creative is a practice. It is a habit you have to build, and it is like a trust that you have to have in yourself. Being obsessed with doing whatever you're doing perfectly or thinking whatever you're thinking perfectly could not be more in the way of that. Back to what I said earlier about creativity not being good at art or music or writing. I'm not saying you shouldn't care about your craft, but I am saying that obsessing over it has diminishing returns. Most things are just not that big of a deal. Most things done as part of a creative practice are practice. They are an idea to work through. They are a stepping stone to the next idea. And many of your ideas along the way are going to be bad. You will try things that won't work. And part of the process, part of the practice is being resilient enough to find another way. It doesn't mean you suck. It's actually the most normal thing in the world. Everyone's first draft of literally anything is bad. I feel more strongly about this than I do about the Guardian spicy chicken patty, if you can't tell. If you are someone who wants to share art or music or writing with the world, and you are one of those people who does those things exclusively in private because it's just not quite right, I'm going to scold you for a moment. With that attitude, it's never going to be quite right. And with that attitude, you will never experience one of the most fun parts of making something, which is setting it free in the world for people to respond to, which we as a species have been doing since the beginning of the species. I think in many situations, perfectionism is just like a mask for insecurity, and it prevents you from being a part of that. Example, the first 2 videos on this channel are long video essays that I spent a long time on. Nobody watched them. I spent the beginning of this year working on another video essay about AI. And right before I finished that, I had the idea to make a little tutorial video about how to make my big salad. So I took a break from writing my serious video and I recorded my little salad video hung over on my deck on my phone. I didn't know that you have to like change the settings in Premiere when you use an iPhone video because when you export it, it gets super overexposed. I didn't even know it got overexposed because I didn't watch my export before I uploaded it. That video is now a couple hundred views shy of 200,000 and is the reason why most of you are here. I am infinitely more proud of the AI video on a creative and technical level, but no one would have ever seen it if I didn't make that stupid video about salad. One of my goals this year was just be prolific. Commit to making a lot of stuff. Good, bad, serious, unserious. Write a lot, share a lot, see what comes of it. Nothing can ever come of anything if you give nothing. Maybe you're making like marginal technique improvements behind the scenes, but those don't always translate to anything when you actually share stuff. They often don't. And even if you are not someone who like makes things, you're not someone who wants to be an artist or a musician. You just want to be more creative in whatever it is that you do. I would still like to encourage you to free yourself from the pressure to be perfect. There's literally no reason to be perfect. No one is. 4, stop worrying about being original. I hear this all the time and I do understand it. It is demoralizing to have what you think is a very cool idea and then later learn that someone else already did that exact same thing. It makes it feel not worth doing at all. But I would like to argue that that is not the case. I have a little reframe for you. As previously mentioned, and also as evidenced by literally everything about me, I went to art school. You have to make a lot of things at art school. Part of that is about practicing your craft, and part of that is about developing your voice, your style, your point of view, what you want to make work about, and why. And a great way to improve both of those things at once is to start to understand yourself as part of like a lineage of artists. If you start to learn the history of the mediums you like to work in, you start to see how these styles and these movements develop over time. You come to realize that all of these artists are just making references to each other over and over again over time. They knew each other. There was drama between them. In this way, 1920s Paris is akin to 2020s Bushwick. Making work inspired by someone else, whether it's practicing a technique you saw and you want to try, or going, I like that concept, I like that framework. What would my take on it be? All of that helps you improve your skills and find your voice. You're not copying someone. You're not having an unoriginal idea. You are making references to art that came before you, seeing where you are similar, seeing where you are different, getting in touch with the stuff that gets you excited to make stuff. If you think about science, I feel like research is kind of the same thing. There's an existing body of research out there, and that informs all the new research. All new research is put in context with the research that came before it. Each study is like an incremental nudge towards a collective understanding of something. The goal is not to do like one study that completely changes our entire understanding of a field. It's more of looking at this existing body of research and going, what if there's another way to look at this little slice of it? What if we did a human study on a mechanism we saw in rats? What if I have the same research question as someone else, but I think a different study design would help us answer it better? I would call that particular train of thought there creative. So if you have an idea and then you come to realize someone else has already had it before, congratulations, welcome to the club. I would see that idea through anyway. See if you can learn stuff about your history along the way. See if there's something in there that's really exciting to you. Get to know why that is. And see if there's something new that you can bring to it. You do not need to wait for a totally original idea to pop in your head to do anything. Otherwise, you will probably never do anything. Everyone's just out there making references, and no one can ever make a reference to you if you don't make anything. And finally, number 5, give your brain a little room to breathe. I'm sorry I've been yelling at you for the last couple points. We're going to be nice again. I think just about every good idea, every solution to a problem, every next thing to try on something I'm stuck on, I think I have resolved just about all of those on a walk. I cannot count the number of times I have been like at a coffee shop writing something, gotten stuck, and figured out the solution to it on the walk home. Walking is when stuff pops into my head. It is when I notice things. It really does kind of feel like magic, but for the magic to happen, you have to give it a chance to happen. You need the chance to notice and to think things. This is all very mindfulness coded. They were right about mindfulness, I'm really sorry to say. I'm not someone who's ever had much luck trying to meditate in like a formal way. So my version of that is going on a mindful walk. Hit the streets with no headphones. Start by naming all the senses and then just seeing where my brain goes from there. And I think finding whatever the like every man's meditation is for you will be in great service to your creativity. Maybe it's actual meditation. Maybe it's on a run. Maybe it's right before bed. Maybe as reading gets you excited to write. There's already probably an experience or a thing or a place where your brain feels pretty free to roam. I would try and identify whatever that is and make a point to do it regularly. Okay, those are my thoughts on how to be more creative. I do feel the need to throw in here that the video about AI I made earlier this year is kind of like a deep dive on why I think creativity is like the antidote to the drudge and sludge era that we're entering. And if any of this resonated with you, I would suggest watching it. I think that being creative just like makes your life more fun and interesting, and that is reason enough to do it. But I also think it is like a really important muscle to flex when everything around us is telling us to outsource that muscle to the computer. We work out our muscles so they'll be strong when we're old. We got to work out our brains so that they stay strong when everything turns to slop. And that creativity and that sharpness and that resilience, that does not come from taking a mushroom supplement. That comes from practice. It comes from doing it and then doing it again and then doing it again and again and again forever. Sorry. Everyone get more creative now. Okay, bye.